The craziest part? Just a few hours after dumping me, the Ice Queen CEO was standing outside my apartment in the middle of the night, eyes red from crying, begging me not to leave. She looked nothing like the untouchable boss everyone worshipped during the day. She whispered, "Please, don't break up with me." I stared at her tear-stained face, leaned against the doorframe, and let out a quiet sigh. Funny, she was the one who said she was tired of me and wanted to erase me from her life. But if you want to understand why she came crawling back, we have to rewind to where everything fell apart. I was crouched beside her ridiculously expensive executive chair, trying to fix the annoying squeak it kept making. That stupid sound had been driving her crazy for days. She stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, her figure hidden beneath the backlight. The designer outfit she wore was worth more than half a year of my salary. Then she called my name. Her voice was as cold and emotionless as ever. "We're done." I was still holding the screwdriver when she said she was tired of me. My hand paused. Then I simply nodded. "Okay." That was the only word I gave her. She froze, then slowly turned around to face me. The look in her eyes felt like she had never truly known me. "Did you even hear me? I said we're breaking up." I calmly placed the screwdriver back into my toolbox. Closed the lid. "I heard you. You got bored? I understand." Her lips trembled. It looked like she wanted to say something. But in the end, nothing came out. Instead, she pointed toward the coffee table. "Take this card. Think of it as compensation." The black card lying there practically screamed unlimited money. There was enough inside for me to live comfortably for years. I shook my head. "No thanks. I'll move back to my own place tonight." I barely owned anything. One suitcase was enough to pack my entire life. I'd lived in her luxury apartment for almost a year. Yet I had left almost no trace behind. Half a tube of toothpaste, a tiny pot I used for instant noodles, and my old game console sitting quietly in the corner. That was it. Everything else belonged to the Ice Queen. She watched me pack without saying a word. Her fingers kept tapping against her knee. She clearly wasn't happy. I zipped up my suitcase, stopped at the front door. Then I turned around one last time. "The chair's fixed. Just don't lean back too hard or it'll start squeaking again." She suddenly shot to her feet. "That's it? You seriously have nothing else to say to me?" I looked at her calmly. "I hope you find someone who makes you happy." Her expression darkened. I opened the door and never looked back. The elevator slowly descended. I placed a hand over my chest. Oddly enough, I felt completely at peace. Deep down, I'd expected this all along. The Ice Queen and I had always belonged to two completely different worlds. She was a billionaire CEO. I was just the company's IT support guy, an ordinary employee, basically an NPC. Us getting together had been nothing but an accident. To her, maybe I was just something new, someone to pass the time with. Now the novelty had worn off. So, naturally, she got bored. I returned to my tiny apartment. The first thing I did was boot up my PC. I finally reinstalled all those Steam games I'd ignored for months. Then I ordered the spiciest barbecue combo I could find. My phone stayed completely silent. No messages. No phone calls either. The next day, I slept until noon. I didn't even bother with the official leave request. I just sent my manager a quick message. I lied and said I wasn't feeling well. He replied almost immediately. Way more concerned than usual. "Take care, Lynn. Get some rest. Your health comes first. Don't worry about work. That reaction felt suspicious. He must have already heard rumors about my breakup with the CEO. I lay in bed scrolling through my phone. Then I refreshed my social feed. And the first thing I saw was a post from the Ice Queen's assistant. The post said she was inspecting a new campus with her executive team. The caption read, "The boss's aura is absolutely unmatched. She commands the entire room." In the photo, the Ice Queen was still wearing the same business suit from yesterday. Every step in those heels screamed authority. I swiped past it without a second thought. Then went right back to watching gaming videos. That night, I was grinding a dungeon with my squad. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. I figured my food delivery had arrived. With the cigarette hanging from my mouth, I opened the door. Standing there was the Ice Queen herself. She was wearing makeup, dressed in a stunning evening gown. She'd obviously just come from a formal banquet, but her face looked pale. She didn't look well at all. Need something? I leaned against the doorframe. I had no intention of inviting her inside. Her eyes immediately landed on the cigarette in my mouth. She frowned. "When did you start smoking?" "I've always smoked. I just never did it when I lived with you." She went silent. "You're not going to invite me in?" "Not really. The place is a mess. I wouldn't want to offend your refined taste." I could hear her breathing become heavier. She called my name. "Do you have to talk to me like this?" "Then how should I talk?" I flicked the ash from my cigarette. "Go ahead, boss. I'm listening." She stared straight at me. Her eyes were bloodshot. "When you left yesterday, why wouldn't you take the black card?" "Want me to take it now instead?" She was caught off guard. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "I didn't bring it." "Then forget it. I don't need it anyway." Neither of us moved. We just stood there staring at each other. The hallway lights suddenly went out. She instinctively shivered. I let out a sigh, crushed my cigarette in the ashtray by the door, then stepped aside. "Come in!" Standing in the hallway is just awkward. She immediately walked inside. Her steps were unusually hurried. My tiny apartment wasn't even 60 square meters. Compared to her luxury penthouse, it was another universe. She stood in the middle of the living room, looking completely out of place. Blankets were piled across the couch. Instant noodle cups and random junk covered the coffee table. The TV was still showing the game I'd been playing. "Sit wherever you want. Just grab a chair." "I'm not exactly living in luxury." She didn't sit down. She just kept looking at me. "We broke up yesterday. And today, you're already gaming like nothing happened? What else was I supposed to do? Cry my eyes out? Or drown myself in alcohol? That's cringe." Her lips tightened. "You don't look heartbroken at all." "I've known this day would come for a long time." "So I made peace with it." "You expected it?" She repeated quietly. "Since when?" "From the very first day we started dating." The room fell silent. Her face instantly turned ghostly white. Even her makeup couldn't hide it. The atmosphere froze, like the entire world had hit pause. After a long moment, she pulled out a chair and sat down. Her back was perfectly straight, like she was attending another board meeting. "I'm hungry." I blinked in confusion. "The convenience store downstairs is still open." "I want the noodles you used to make." "Just like before." "With a fried egg." She looked straight at me. I scratched my head. "Boss, we already broke up." And you were the one who ended it. So now you won't even cook me one bowl of noodles? She shot back with a straight face. I couldn't help laughing. Fine, just wait here. I walked into the kitchen and pulled out a pack of noodles. I grabbed a couple of eggs and some fresh vegetables, then got to work. She didn't follow me into the kitchen, but I could still feel it. Her eyes never left my back. Before long, a simple bowl of noodles was ready. A fried egg rested on top. Finished with a few green vegetables, I placed the bowl in front of her. Eat, then head home. She picked up her chopsticks. She ate painfully slowly, savoring every single bite. When she finished, she quietly set the bowl down, then calmly said, "It's a little salty. I'll remember that next time." Though there won't be a next time. The color immediately drained from her face again. You really can't wait for me to leave? What else? I began cleaning the dishes. You want to stay the night? I only have one bed. It isn't exactly fit for someone as important as you. She picked up her handbag. I'm leaving. I didn't bother seeing her out. Her hand reached the doorknob before she suddenly turned around. That chair? It's squeaking again. Call customer support, I answered flatly. The warranty card is in the coffee table drawer. And don't call me. I resigned. She looked up in shock. When? This afternoon. I submitted my resignation. It was already approved. I'm no longer your employee. And you're no longer my boss. She was completely speechless. Then she quietly left. This time, every footstep echoing through the hallway felt unbelievably heavy. Thud. Thud. I shut the door and returned to my computer. My game character had already died from being a FK. My teammates were roasting me nonstop. I put my headset back on. Sorry, had something to deal with. Let's queue again. The next day, I was debating whether to find another job immediately, or just take a break first. Then the doorbell rang again. This time, it wasn't the Ice Queen. It was her assistant. He greeted me with an awkward smile. Both hands were full of luxury shopping bags. Mr. Lin, the boss asked me to bring these to you. I stayed planted in the doorway. What is it? Some fresh clothes. And all your favorite snacks. Take them back! I interrupted immediately. I don't need any of it. Please don't make this difficult for me. His smile became painfully forced. The boss specifically ordered me to deliver them. That's her decision. My refusal is mine. It has nothing to do with you. After saying that, I closed the door. Not long afterward, an unfamiliar number called me. I answered. Hello? Silence filled the line for several seconds. Then I heard the Ice Queen's voice. Why didn't you accept the gifts? I don't wear expensive designer clothes. They'd just look completely out of place on me. Then what do you want to eat? I'll have my assistant buy it. I called her by her full name. What exactly are you trying to do? The line went silent again. All I could hear was her breathing. After a long pause, she spoke in a very quiet voice. My stomach hurts. I barely ate yesterday, and I've hardly eaten anything today. Call your private doctor. The medicine isn't helping. Then I can't help either. I'm just an IT guy. The most I can do is cook a bowl of noodles. I can't cure stomach problems. My name slipped from her lips, her voice trembling. Do you really have to treat me like this? You're the one who broke up with me. I reminded her calmly. You said you were tired of me. I accepted it. So why keep chasing me now? She didn't answer. She simply hung up. I stared at the dark phone screen, then lit the last cigarette left in the pack. A heavy frustration settled in my chest. The next 2 days were finally peaceful. I sent out several resumes and interviewed with 2 different companies. Neither one really impressed me. Then one of my college buddies called me out of the blue. Yo, Lynn, come grab a drink. I got promoted. Meet me at the barbecue stall tonight. A few beers later, my friend threw an arm around my shoulder. So you really quit that high-paying job? That was a huge company. What a waste! He clinked his glass against mine. It just wasn't worth staying. He leaned closer with a grin. So, you and the Ice Queen are really over? She was the one who dumped me! Damn! He slapped his thigh. So, you walked away with nothing? I walked away with peace. Quit pretending. He didn't buy it for a second. Someone like her, you can't just forget overnight. I took another sip of beer. Maybe. But whether I let go or not doesn't matter anymore. She chose to walk away first. If I kept chasing after her, I'd only lose my self-respect. Right in the middle of our conversation, my buddy suddenly nudged me with his elbow. Bro, look. I followed the direction he pointed. The barbecue street glowed under dim yellow lights. Smoke filled the air. And beside a black luxury sedan stood the Ice Queen, staring straight at me. She had traded her business suit for a simple dress. A trench coat rested over her shoulders. She looked completely out of place in the noisy street market. How the hell did she find me? Even my friend was speechless. I put my beer down. You guys keep drinking. I'll go see what's going on. I walked over to her. Her light perfume mixed strangely with the smell of grilled meat. The contrast was honestly surreal. Almost unreal. Were you following me? She didn't answer. She simply looked at me. I called you. Your phone was on silent. So, what's the emergency? I haven't eaten dinner. She pointed toward the sizzling barbecue skewers. I want to eat that. I looked at her in disbelief. This kind of place isn't for someone like you. If you can eat here, why can't I? I'm built different. You've lived a pampered life. If you get food poisoning, I'm not taking the blame. She stepped closer. Close enough to invade my personal space. You won't be responsible. The streetlight reflected in her eyes. They shined with unbelievable intensity. So, are you buying me dinner or not? In the end, I gave in. I pulled over a plastic stool, then wiped it down several times with tissues. She carefully sat down. The hem of her trench coat brushed the ground. My friend quietly slipped away. I pushed the menu toward her. Order whatever you want. Just don't go overboard. Don't waste food! She stared at the greasy plastic table, looking completely lost. I've never eaten somewhere like this. Without saying anything, I took the menu back, then ordered a few classic barbecue skewers for us. I specifically asked for less chili. While waiting for the food, neither of us said a word. She quietly watched a group of college students laughing and playing drinking games. There was genuine curiosity in her eyes. Did you come here a lot before? She suddenly broke the silence. Yeah, back when I was struggling. This place was the cheapest option. She stayed quiet for a moment before asking, Was being with me actually boring? I looked up at her. Why ask me that now? I just want to know. The skewers arrived at our table. I handed her a grilled slice of bread. It's fine. Everyone has their own way of living. She took a careful bite. Her brows immediately knitted together. It's so hard. Try this meat skewer instead. She accepted it. Then cautiously took a bite. The spice hit her instantly. Her eyes watered on the spot. She grabbed her throat. I slid an ice-cold beer toward her. She gulped it down. Without stopping. Her lips turned bright red. Her eyes shimmered with tears. Why is it so spicy? I forgot to remind you. You've never been able to handle spicy food. She looked at me. Then whispered. You still remember that I can't eat spicy food, yet you still refuse to get back together with me. I tightened my grip on the skewer. Those are two different things. Remembering your preferences is just a habit I built over time. Getting back together is another matter entirely. She set down her beer. Her expression turned serious. Lin Shubai, I regret it. The night breeze stirred her hair. I only said we should break up because I was angry. I never intended for us to actually separate. I never imagined you'd agree so easily. I wiped my hands clean, then answered calmly. Shenyuchu, you're not the type to say something like that on impulse. She suddenly became emotional. The project was falling apart that day. I was overwhelmed. Then I turned around and saw you fixing that chair. You didn't even notice how I felt. So I blurted out, let's break up. I froze for a second. Then I laughed. That's exactly the biggest problem between us. What problem? When you're upset, you can use breaking up as an emotional weapon. Because you were certain that even if I refused, there was nothing I could do. But what about me? Could I ever afford to throw a tantrum? No! You were always the untouchable queen! I was just an ordinary guy. Our relationship was never equal from the very beginning. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The light in her eyes slowly faded. So, you never truly loved me? You only stayed because of my status? I shook my head. I really did love you. But let me ask you something. Did you love me? Or were you simply used to having someone take care of you? She froze. I got up and paid the bill. When I returned, she was still staring at the unfinished skewers. Come on! I'll walk you to your car. She slowly stood up and followed me to the waiting sedan. The driver stepped forward and opened the door. Just before getting in, she turned around. What if I really try to change? The night wind lifted her hair. Streetlights reflected in her eyes. Don't. If you change, you won't be yourself anymore. Her eyes instantly turned red. Ling Shubai, you're such a jerk. I gave a faint smile. We're even. The car drove away. I stood by the roadside and lit a cigarette. My college buddy suddenly walked over. So, finished talking? Man, she looked like she'd been crying. My buddy looked at me and smirked. Bro, did you bully that girl or something? I just stared back at him like, do I seriously look like that kind of guy? The guy kept a completely straight face, making it obvious he genuinely thought I was the problem. I rolled my eyes and lightly kicked him, telling him to quit messing around. Then he leaned closer, suddenly sounding unusually serious. She already lowered her pride and came looking for you herself. The deal she's offering is insanely good. So you're seriously not even tempted? I was tempted once, but now, no chance. Why? Because I was done choosing a life that drained every ounce of my sanity. He burst into laughter, thinking I was just making excuses. To him, it sounded like another joke. I didn't bother explaining any further. I wasn't trying to act tough. Those were my genuine feelings. Back when I was with my toxic ex, every single day felt like walking through a minefield. I had to constantly read every tiny emotion. I kept forcing myself to match every preference, but that was never who I really was. All I'd ever wanted was a quiet, peaceful life. Pretending to be someone else every single day was absolute torture. It slowly crushed me. Now that I'd finally returned to my own life, I could actually breathe again. It felt amazing. Over the next few days, everything stayed surprisingly peaceful. I joined a small company. The salary wasn't impressive, but the workload was ridiculously chill, 9 to 6. After work, I'd hop into games and grind for fun. Weekends, sleep until my body naturally woke up. Sometimes my toxic ex crossed my mind, but the thought disappeared almost instantly. No regret, no lingering attachment. Until one particular night, I had just stepped out of the shower. Suddenly, the doorbell exploded into a non-stop barrage. Someone was practically mashing the button. I frowned and opened the door. Standing there was my toxic ex. The smell of alcohol hit me immediately, completely wasted. Barely able to stand. Most of the body weight was leaning against my doorway. Those eyes were red like a crying rabbit. The voice trembled with tears. My stomach hurts. Really hurts. The overwhelming smell of liquor made me sigh. You've been drinking? It was a business dinner. A trembling hand grabbed my arm tightly. I drank way too much. I let out a helpless sigh. Then I helped the drunken mess inside. The entire body had gone limp. Almost all the weight rested on me. Soft hair brushed against my neck, sending an unexpected chill through my spine. I carefully helped the drunk idiot onto my couch. Then I brought over a cup of warm water. The hands were shaking so badly that most of the water spilled everywhere. Easy. I took the cup back. Then I carefully held it to those lips myself. After only 2 sips, the face turned away and pushed the cup aside. I deserve this. I know I can't hold my liquor. And I still forced myself to drink. Those watery eyes looked straight at me. No one's there to block drinks from me anymore. What about your new assistant? I don't have one. The head slowly shook. I fired all 3 of the replacements. I was completely speechless. They were nothing compared to... A shaky hand pointed at me. You. Looking at that pitiful state, I knew logic wasn't going to work. Rest here for a minute. I'm going to make you some honey water. The moment I stood up, a freezing hand suddenly locked around my wrist. Ice cold. Still trembling nonstop. Don't go! Those tear-filled eyes looked up at me. They were soaked with regret. I was wrong. What exactly were you wrong about? The question escaped my mouth before I realized it. The face buried itself into my palm. The voice came out muffled, mixed with quiet sobs. I never should have asked to break up. I never should have taken my anger out on you. I never should have let my pride control everything. I won't make those mistakes again. Please, come back to me. I stayed completely silent. This time, I refused to answer. I stayed silent. Seconds passed, and no answer ever came. Slowly, my toxic ex lifted those tearful eyes toward me. A fresh stream of tears rolled straight down that face. So, you still can't forgive me? I've already humbled myself this much. I gently pulled my wrist free from that desperate grip. You're drunk. No. The voice immediately rose in protest. I'm perfectly sober. I know exactly what I'm saying. Someone who's truly sober wouldn't be saying these things. Then tell me. What am I supposed to say? The drunken figure staggered back to their feet. A hand grabbed the front of my shirt, Teach me, please. What do I have to do? Before you'll choose me again? I stared into those bloodshot eyes. The intimidating Ice Queen CEO, the woman everyone feared, now looked like a child who had completely lost the way. Sit down before you fall. No. She refused to let go of my shirt. That stubbornness hadn't changed. Tonight, you're giving me an answer. What answer? Do you still want me? She locked eyes with me. Every single word landed with deadly seriousness. The question echoed through the room. Only the quiet hum of the refrigerator remained. The hand gripping my shirt tightened until the knuckles turned white. The strength was almost painful. Most of the body weight was hanging against me. You're completely drunk! I tried to pry those fingers away. Instead, the grip only became tighter. You always dodge the question. You never answer me directly. I let out a long, exhausted breath. Fine. Let's say I came back. Then what? We'd live together. Just like before. The answer came after a brief hesitation. Just like before? I couldn't help laughing. Are you really sure that's the life you want? You were always so busy that I barely saw you. Even while talking to me, you were replying to work emails. One dinner meant answering 8 different phone calls. Even spending time together felt like racing against the clock. Tell me honestly, haven't you had enough of living like that? She froze completely, like someone had pressed the pause button. After a long silence, the light slowly faded from those beautiful eyes. So, you're really giving up on me? The voice trembled uncontrollably. I couldn't answer. Slowly, she let go, then took one shaky step backward, another step. Instinctively, I reached out to catch her. She violently knocked my hand away. Don't touch me. She leaned against the wall to stay upright. Long hair fell forward, hiding the entire face. Those shoulders trembled over and over. I understand. The words came out barely above a whisper. I'm sorry for bothering you. She slowly turned toward the door. Every step looked weightless and unstable. I watched her reach for the doorknob. She missed it once, then missed it again. Finally, her entire body slid down the door until she was sitting helplessly on the floor. Her face disappeared into her knees. She didn't move. The powerful CEO who once dominated every room had curled into the smallest, loneliest figure imaginable. She looked completely broken. I stood there for almost a full minute. In the end, I couldn't just walk away. I walked over and knelt in front of her. I quietly called her name. There was no response, so I gently touched her shoulder. She flinched violently. When she finally looked up, her entire face was soaked in tears. I froze. I'd known her for so long, yet I'd never seen her cry. What are you looking at? Never seen someone cry before? Even through the sobbing, she tried to sound sarcastic. No, I've just never seen you cry. She desperately wiped away the tears with the back of her hand. But the harder she wiped, the faster they fell. My stomach, it hurts so much. It really hurts. My toxic ex choked out between sobs. That's what happens when you drink like your life has no respawn. My words sounded cold, but my heart had already started to soften. I reached down and carefully helped the broken CEO back onto the feet. Then I settled her onto the couch again. I headed into the kitchen. A warm cup of honey water came together in minutes. When I returned, she was hugging the knees on the couch. Those swollen red eyes made her look like an abandoned little animal. I quietly placed the cup into the trembling hands. She held it with both hands and took tiny, careful sips. After finishing, I asked, "Does it still hurt?" "Yeah," I sighed. Then I grabbed the first aid kit. Following the instructions, I took out 2 stomach pills. I poured another glass of water and handed over the medicine. She stared suspiciously at the pills. A tiny frown appeared. They're bitter. I almost laughed. Seriously? How old are you? She pouted like a stubborn kid. Reluctantly, she swallowed the pills, then immediately chugged almost the entire glass of water, even sticking out the tongue afterward. That tastes awful. I simply placed the empty cup back onto the table. She sat there quietly for a while, then slowly shuffled closer until our arms were touching. I turned to look. She instantly lowered the head, pretending to be fascinated by the fingers. I thought about what you asked me earlier. The voice was barely above a whisper. What part? About whether we could go back to how we used to be. And? She took a deep breath while staring at the knees. We don't have to be the same. I'll silence my phone whenever we're eating together. I'll answer fewer work calls. And I'll stop working overtime every weekend. The voice became quieter with every promise. Even she didn't sound completely convinced. What else? I asked. She thought quietly for a moment, then looked straight into my eyes. Those eyes were still red, but they sparkled with determination. I can learn to eat spicy food. I'll go to late-night food stalls with you. I won't even complain about walking under the sun without an umbrella. I really will change. She looked at me with pure hope. Like a kid waiting to be praised after trying so hard, I quietly looked away. You don't have to. The hope vanished from those eyes instantly. The voice shook. Why? Because you don't need to. How can you be so sure I can't change? I've known you for an entire year. I know exactly who you are. You were born to live for your career. You're competitive and incredibly proud. You always want to stay in control. That's simply your nature. If you force yourself to change, you'll only suffer. And watching that would hurt me too. She stared at me without blinking. So, you really think I'll never change? Pretty much. She bit the lip. Then, what did you ever love about me? I seriously thought about it. Then answered honestly. You're gorgeous. Rich, brilliant, smarter than almost anyone, and ridiculously attractive. Her expression froze completely. That's it? What else were you expecting? A speech about soulmates? She fell silent again. Both hands twisted nervously together. A long time passed. Then she suddenly looked up. Kiss me once. E completely froze. What? Kiss me. She repeated it without hesitation. Just one kiss. And I'll pretend you never called me controlling. Or accuse me of being too proud. You're cheating. Yep. She shamelessly admitted it with a straight face. So, are you going to kiss me or not? We already broke up. We're simply not meant to be anymore. Then why? When I was crying and hurting so badly, did you still take care of me? Basic human decency. That's all. Then keep caring about me. Just a little longer. She slowly closed her eyes, then raised a finger to her lips. I watched those trembling eyelashes and those lips pressed together from pure nervousness. For someone so fearless in business. This was unbelievably vulnerable. Seriously, this stubborn woman was completely hopeless. She kept her eyes tightly shut. I'm giving you 3 seconds. If you don't kiss me, I'm leaving. I didn't move. 2? I was still standing there. She slowly opened her eyes. Disappointment filled them. But underneath, it was that same unbreakable pride, refusing to surrender. 3. She stood up, then walked toward the door. This time, every step was steady. She reached for the doorknob, then looked back at me one last time. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe." That was all I could say. She stared at me for one final moment, before quietly walking out and closing the door. I remained motionless on the couch. Her perfume still lingered in the room. Mixed with the faint scent of alcohol. The next morning, a loud ringtone ripped me out of sleep. I grabbed my phone. It was my bro calling. "Dude, something huge just happened!" I rubbed my aching head and sat up. "What happened? Check the old company's group chat right now." "I'm sending screenshots." A few seconds later, several screenshots popped onto my screen. The pinned announcement came directly from the Ice Queen CEO. She had tagged everyone in the company. "Effective immediately. I'm taking 1 month off. The vice president will oversee company operations. Urgent matters should be handled by email. Please don't contact me unless absolutely necessary." The replies flooded the screen. Almost every single one simply read, "Received," along with a mountain of confused emojis. "You saw it, right?" my buddy asked excitedly. Even through the phone, I could hear the hype. The Ice Queen actually took a vacation. A whole month. Ever since taking over the company. She's never disappeared for this long. "You don't seem surprised at all." The voice became suspicious. "Don't tell me this has something to do with you." "Yeah, she came to see me last night." I briefly explained everything that happened. Of course, I skipped the crying and the kiss request. No way I was sharing that. My buddy needed a moment to process it. Then he practically shouted, "So she's actually trying to change herself for you?" "Hard to say. Maybe it was just an emotional impulse." "But what if she's serious?" He became more excited with every sentence. "ACEO, putting work aside for you. Taking a whole month off? That's straight up romance, bro. I wouldn't call it romantic." Leaving a position like hers isn't that simple. The company is bound to be in chaos. "So what are you going to do?" "Nothing. I'll wait until she comes back and keep living my own life." "Damn! Your heart is made of titanium. She lowered herself for you. And you're still not giving in?" I was shaken. But feelings alone aren't enough. "So what will be enough?" I honestly don't know. Maybe only time can answer that. After hanging up, I got ready for work. Looking into the mirror, I noticed the dark circles under my eyes. I couldn't stop remembering the way she closed her eyes, waiting for that kiss, and that shameless little smile. Ridiculous. Yet, somehow, unbelievably cute. I shook my head hard. No distractions. Time to move forward. I left for work. My new office was only 3 subway stops away, and my daily grind was nothing more than maintaining the company's network systems and handling the office network. My coworkers were chill. For the first time in forever, my life felt peaceful. Then one day, during my lunch break, a new post suddenly popped up on my feed. It was from *** my Ice ***. The photo showed nothing but an endless blue sky. The caption contained only 2 words. Day 1. The location was a seaside city. The same vacation spot she always used to visit. The comments were overflowing with well wishes. I scrolled past it, without stopping. The days kept moving forward. I slowly adapted to my simple 9 to 6 routine. After work, I gamed. Weekends, I slept in. Life became simple, and honestly, pretty comfy. Every now and then, I'd see another post from her. Sometimes it was mountains and the sea. Sometimes, just a close-up of a leaf. Her captions were always short. Quiet. just like the person she had always been. Brief, precise. I never hit the like button. And I never left a single comment. But my best buddy stayed completely invested. He kept sending me updates nonstop. Dude, she climbed a mountain today. Now she's chilling by the beach. Bro, she's actually reading philosophy. That's wild. I couldn't help laughing. You're paying that much attention? Why don't you date her instead? He instantly backed off. Nah, forget it. I can't handle a final boss with that kind of aura. You two are meant for each other. I didn't answer. Whether we matched, there was no point debating it anymore. Half a month flew by. Then came Saturday morning. The doorbell rang unexpectedly. I figured it was a delivery. So I answered the door wearing my pajamas. Standing there was ***, my Ice Queen X, ***. She looked a little slimmer, but healthier than ever. She wore nothing fancy. Just a t-shirt, jeans, and a ponytail. No makeup. Both hands carried grocery bags. Fresh vegetables, fresh meat. Morning, she smiled. I bought groceries. I came to make breakfast. I froze. My brain completely lagged. She casually walked inside. Straight to my kitchen like she'd never left. Go wash up. I'll have breakfast ready soon. I stood there, watching her busy in the kitchen. It honestly felt unreal. After I finished getting ready, I walked back out. Breakfast was already waiting on the table. Fried eggs, bacon, toast, and 2 glasses of warm milk. She took off her apron and smiled. Give it a try. Why are you here? My vacation got boring. She answered honestly. I remembered you saying weekends deserved a proper breakfast. You made all of this? She nodded proudly. I spent 2 weeks learning. My eggs don't burn anymore. I took a bite. The timing was perfect. It actually tasted good. Definitely better than instant noodles. Her eyes curved into a happy smile. Then I'll cook for you more often. I stayed silent and quietly finished my meal. After breakfast, she volunteered to clean up. She headed into the kitchen. Her dishwashing skills were still awkward, but she put her whole heart into it. So, this is what you've been doing for the last 2 weeks? I leaned against the kitchen door and asked. She turned off the faucet, then faced me with a relaxed smile. I've been learning how to slow down and actually live. I even tried to stop thinking about you. He said that last part so quietly, but every single word landed right in my chest. And the result? Total failure. He stared straight at me. Every emotion in his eyes was impossible to hide. The more I tried to relax, the tighter my heart became. The more I tried to kill time, the more restless I felt. The more I ordered myself not to think about you, the stronger I missed you. I looked at his wet hands, then into those eyes shimmering with tears. I sighed. You're seriously beyond saving. He stepped closer. Completely hopeless. Yeah, he admitted without hesitation. His eyes never left mine. So, are you going to try saving me? I reached up and held the back of his neck. Then I leaned in and kissed him. I'd been holding that kiss back for far too long. It carried every ounce of tension and longing. It was fierce and immediate. He froze for a split second, then kissed me back just as fiercely. He refused to lose that exchange. The plate in his hand slipped into the sink and crashed with a loud clang. Neither of us cared anymore. All I noticed was the cool mint from our toothpaste, mixed with the warmth of breakfast and the dangerous thrill between us. Maybe it was the taste of the tears he'd shed. Only after we were both out of breath did we finally pull apart. His lips were flushed. His chest rose and fell rapidly. His eyes shined brighter than ever. So, does that mean the treatment worked? He asked between breaths. I gently brushed my thumb across his reddened lips. It's too early to tell. We'll have to monitor your recovery. He laughed, then rested his head against my shoulder. You were such a jerk just now. I learned from you. He rubbed his head lightly against my neck. So, are we back together? His voice was muffled against my clothes. What do you think? I think we are. Then I'll go with your answer. He looked up. His eyes overflowed with happiness. From today on, I'll be the one taking care of you. And you'll be stuck with me. His ears instantly turned bright red. Pervert! Who was the one playing dirty first? You wouldn't stop until I kissed you. I raised an eyebrow. That's different. How is it different? He couldn't answer. Instead, he buried his face against my shoulder again. Still blushing, he mumbled like a sore loser. It just is. The end.